we're in this funny collision where the some aspects of design have gotten so big in the ambition in a really exciting way that everything is design. We will design the business, we will design the enterprise, and other parts of design said no. The thing that we offer that is truly unique sits in the spending as much time as possible crafting the experience itself.
Welcome to the General Podcast, the show where there's no host, no script, just the best builders talking about what they do and why they do it.
Someone had posted a page from a book as one of the Stripe Press books. And I was like, well, this looks really interesting. Like, what is that? And then they said, oh, you should ask Katie Dill about it. And I was like, I'm going to see her later. And it felt
Yay!
great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. What a nice little moment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which book was it?
Is there some new one about kind of like, it's much more like economic or like finance related. Is this true?
Poor Charlie's Almanac, maybe?
No.
Oh. Yeah, the Stripe Press books are a lot of fun. I mean, they're all under the same umbrella of, what are ideas of progress is the kind of the notion behind those books. And some of them are, they were written many, many, many moons ago, and maybe we're out of print, and then we're reprinting them with a new, perspective, a new face. And then some are, actually being written at the moment so that we can, launch a new book. One from Dwarkesh is coming soon about AI. But yeah, they're a really fun design project. I mean, it's all the tropes fit, right? Like, judging a book by its cover and thinking about like what you want to communicate with that idea, thinking about it from the lens of like, well, this is like Stripe Press, the brand. What is the commonality between these books, even though they're all very, very different and should have their own identity? How do they communicate wildly well, right? Like they have to be so very readable, but also like, you want to turn that page. What's the, what is the compelling way to interest you into the stories that they're there? We have a lot of fun with that work. And I know it's certainly not, the core business. And
Yeah,
so
sure.
sometimes folks are like, why do you guys do that? It is part of the core mission, which is, kind of pushing forward progress. But yes, I think as a creative outlet and also like a voice of the brand, it's been a lot of fun to work
Yeah,
on
that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts through in
Yeah.
a really cool way.
I would imagine, I mean, I know, the way that you all operate, that you're, often, pushing forward these ideas that are maybe not core to the business, but like are a part of the culture or a part of the creative outlet or the brand. What are you guys working on?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think everything kind of ends up embodying like the sort of notion spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in the culture and the expression of the product or something. It can't be like it can't be all serious all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yet those things aren't like sprinkled in. It's not what's the phrase I hate? Like moments of delight. It's like not, it's not the like confetti success screen kind of experience. It's like inherently playful.
Yeah. Well, intelligent humor, which is, I mean, it's kind of like I'm sure there's a famous quote somewhere. I'm failing to think of it, but like the epitome of intelligence, it kind of is shown in that. And also like cheap laughs, it's just not gonna have the same effect when like, but something that's like thoughtfully considered and witty that shows the love and the care of the
Yeah, totally.
maker
Yeah,
very, very clearly comes from the brand. And like, I know how not easy that is to make, but it's certainly, I think, a very strong part of what makes Notion so great.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much an embodiment of like founders as well.
Yeah.
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 And I mean, we can both probably
Yeah.
have that experience too. Like founder-led brands have a certain, I don't know if they all do, but the ones I've been exposed to and have been able to work closely on, you get a little bit of there's an easier through line between what the business stands for and like its personality, because at some level it is an embodiment of the personality of the founders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't need to look somewhere else to try to like invent that character or something. It's like a distillation of some of the best aspects of the character that exists like right in front of you. Yeah.
They can't help but like bring it to work.
Yeah.
Like that is who they are.
And I think it's kind of a blessing, or it's like a real gift to have that, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have to, it's just right in front of you every day and you kind of like live it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you can hire really, really well, both on like both sides, like the candidate choosing the organization that like they really are well aligned with, like principally in character, And then also selecting the people that you bring onto your team. I think it is possible to extend that character and that identity and develop it such that like hopefully the organization can live on, even beyond
Totally.
the founder. But yes, I think in the last 3 companies I worked at, there were founder led,
Yeah.
and very much these founders brought that character into the work. The Collisons, I think they're not designers, but the company is extremely, design. I don't know what the word is, forward or like appreciative, and like they like
Yep.
understand the role of design. I think it really just comes from like a passion for user experience. Like the founders, when there was no one else there, they were, meeting with their users, like sitting down with their laptops and like, here's what we've made. What do you think? And like getting that feedback and iterating quickly. Like anyone that is starting an organization and building it up, that especially in those early days, those first hires are going to matter a lot to like what they're setting in stone or in practice as like the way the organization works, and thinking about the not just design but like the disciplines and the functions that are going to make the products the way at the standard that you want, and make the day-to-day work at the standard that you want. I've worked at companies that were founded by designers, and I've worked at companies that were founded by businessmen, whatever that might be, and founded by engineers. And I think the key is that commitment to the user experience.
Mm.
And it almost feels trite to say because user experience is like thrown around too often. It's like too grandiose of a term, but like actually thinking about who you're making something for and what their needs and context is. Like, are you doing that? And are you making decisions for that? Then I think all the rest follows. And then you start to think about like, oh, I need to have some really strong engineers and really strong designers and really strong, various other functions to help me get to that. And that's where, a ripe ground is first created, I think.
I think this can be true.
Oh,
Like,
he's
I
coming
agree.
up with a
Well,
disagreement. I'm
yeah. No, I think
excited.
that there's another. I often find myself talking about businesses as brands.
Hmm.
Meaning like, oh, you work for the brand Stripe, I work for the brand Notion. Of course, it's more than that, but there's something about the feeling, like the perception and feeling aspect of the brand lens on things that I think is also really, um, yeah, it's like fertile ground to grow from, because you have this like a sense of personality, a sense of purpose, some kind of overarching set of behaviors.
Hmm.
Then it needs to be married with a customer or a set of
Yeah.
needs, or like, satisfy some emotional need or something. But there's the way, like, we would use the word, it's got like a vibe today, but that
Yeah.
like underserves maybe the gravity of that.
Yeah.
But there's just like some shared feeling
Yeah.
about how the thing ought to be.
Hmm.
And then maybe a version of that is, or maybe an enhancement of that is how it ought to be for this user in this
Hmm.
situation, or
Hmm.
like for these
Yes.
people with this problem.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard a great definition of design. Dylan Field shared on podcast that he was on recently. Design is art as it is as applied to problem solving, which I really
Sure. Yeah,
liked.
yeah.
I think I
That works.
often maybe undersell design and define it as solving problems with intention.
Mm.
And in my definition, I'm certainly not kind of saying that all design is great. There is like you could design this glass, but it doesn't mean like your choices were right. You just maybe that's you intentionally chose
Yeah.
this. But the art aspect of it, which is really nice, is I think it encapsulates a bit more of that like unspoken ability that great designers
Mm.
have, to like understand the taste or know what's going to be great before it already is. It's easy to see what people have been buying and then make another one of those, but like to know what people are going to want is very difficult. And
Mm. Mhm.
does that, who has that skill, and can you even teach that skill is maybe to be questioned.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think an organization that recognizes, there is that aspect and embraces that and maybe hires for that and
Mhm,
recognizes
mhm.
that like, there is a definition or difference between like good design and great, and, to bring on those experts.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think like, design, same thing with content design and even research, a lot of people can look at it and just be like, oh, anyone can do that. And she's like, no, no, not not anyone can do it if it's really great.
Yeah.
Like you do need to know the skills. You do need to hone those skills and
Mm-hmm.
like build that expertise. And then, you could probably get it done at a higher level and maybe even a faster or, a scaled level that others cannot. And so I think an organization that appreciates that in really any function. I mean, same thing with engineering. Not
Totally.
all,
Yeah. Yeah.
engineering is created equal.
Mhm. I think this is where other than like the broader culture really matters too. If I think about like fertile ground for design,
Yeah.
which is like the extent to which you, okay, now I'm thinking about in the context of a technology company that is design forward, or would you say design appreciative? Yeah. That like the culture has hired or cultivated an environment in which someone can make a choice based on that conviction and other people will support it,
Yeah.
or understand the value of that
Hmm.
and appreciate it, um, rather than operate out of like fear for like misunderstanding or scarcity mindset or something. There's like lots of things that can happen in an organization. I would say like don't, but like if it's really healthy in
Yeah.
an organization that values and respects the contribution of design, and you find other functions saying more like, okay, how can we make this succeed?
Yeah.
Or how can we like, I hear your conviction. How do we mitigate the risk
Yeah.
of that rather than don't do it?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, to expand it beyond design, I feel like in, any function, having somebody with a point of view and like the courage to like, have that point of view and see it and help people move forward with that. And it's like, it's like the auteur, like somebody who can kind of like have a sense of it. The person on my team recently shared with me this analogy of ice cream. Now, if you ask
Yep.
anybody what their favorite ice cream is, like, what's your favorite ice cream? I'll ask you right now.
Mint chocolate chip.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I love mint chocolate chip. I also like strawberry. Anyway, we could ask everybody we know what favorite ice cream is. And we'll probably get a really awesome range of flavors. But then you and I are throwing a party and we can only buy one flavor of ice cream. Which one are we probably going to buy?
I mean, I feel like the answer to your story is vanilla, but I want to say,
You want to say mint chip.
I want to
because
say
you want
something
me to
really
tell you
peculiar.
You can have your choice.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, like people end up with vanilla when they're trying to get, one ice cream for everybody. And it was a really, really good analogy when you talk about leadership on work. And when you've got multiple cooks in the kitchen and you don't have like the auteur, the person that's helping to identify what, this should be and have a vision for how it should go, it can easily, and, oftentimes not, by anyone's malintent, but kind of come back to vanilla.
Yeah, totally.
And so, yeah, you need somebody in that room with like the courage to see like, no, this is where this is going. And trust me, it's going to be great. And put themselves on a line and maybe be wrong sometimes, learn from it. But, be willing to kind of go for that.
Yeah, totally. Well, you said this interesting thing, like too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think that there's also, I mean, something we do at Notion, which I've seen and like participated in other organizations in the past, but I think we do it with it's more top of mind, let's say, in Notion culture, which is to sort of streamline who's involved. That
Okay.
like, I don't know if things are taking too long. I mean, it goes, do you know Fred Brooks, the old like mythical man month? I don't know when he
No.
wrote this in like, it's like engineering management kind of.
Oh, okay.
The main takeaway of the mythical man month is basically like if something is off track or like going too slowly, you remove people. Like the tendency is to add people. Like we need to add more people to speed it up. But actually, if you want to speed it up, you should remove people. And I think there's really something to this. I mean, that's all backed by like sort of operational organizational research.
Yeah.
It's like, but there's a similar. There's like how many strong opinion holders are in it, and usually it's good if it's few.
Yeah.
And I think in a healthy culture, it's perfectly reasonable and comfortable for people to go, oh yeah, I don't need to be the person with a strong opinion in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I trust you. And then you play other roles to help make it happen.
Yeah.
And that can be really powerful for like distilling things, creating momentum, keeping it simple, avoiding like ending up at vanilla.
Yeah.
You're like, I mean, I like mint chocolate chip, but you like, I don't know, Was yours strawberry?
Yeah.
Like, I can get down with strawberry. Like, let's make strawberry awesome.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's far better, I think, than trying to will both of those for as long as possible or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the key is people have to recognize that while you might not get your flavor, better thing is a decision was made and there will be ice cream at the party.
Yeah, and if it's good quality ice cream,
Yeah.
like we're gonna be sad. There's a
Exactly.
story to tell about it. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. How do you all, are there ways that you've operationalized it to ensure that like there are few as possible decision makers in something?
Well, one is we just have few people. I think that like talent density is an important
Yeah.
sort of concept in our organization. And yeah, when you have fewer people, you have fewer like nodes of communication, fewer, fewer misunderstandings. There are fewer people in the room because there's fewer people to be in the room, period. So that kind of, there's a bunch of side effects of these choices or like intentional outcomes of them, but that's certainly one of them.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to move many things forward and you have a small but sort of talented team, you like by virtue of that, you kind of have to let some things some people drive the conviction in certain areas because you can't be across all of them in that same way.
Yep.
It's just not possible. I would say that's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
But then it becomes very important that all those people are quite aligned
Mhm.
and they might end up making similar decisions as each other.
Stripe has a written culture. We're very big on docs, and it is super helpful. Like when you start at the company, and you get a deluge of docs about like all the things that are going on, and it's amazing. And you're like, very quickly brought up to speed on a lot of things at once. But then you're also very quickly overwhelmed by all the things. But it was interesting to see that it almost, I wouldn't call it a crutch, but it almost just became a very strong muscle that almost like, you're now like, you're only turning left because that muscle on the left side is like really, is really strong.
Yeah.
And we weren't embracing all the other ways of communicating and bringing people along.
Yeah. Okay.
And so a fellow on my team, Dan, wrote a doc that has like, it went viral internally, and it's more demos, less memos.
Great.
And it's ironically it's a doc, but
Yeah. I was gonna say something.
Ironically, it's a memo, but it sums it up really nicely as to like, well, what is the value of a prototype? What is, back to that user experience? Like, you can write down, what you're trying to solve and like what your goals are and, who your users are. But as soon as you put it into a demo, like a prototype of the product, what's the Davidson quote? Or I think he said he didn't say it, but like a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. If you heard that one. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, it's so illuminating and it shows you so much, and you can put it in front of a user and get their responses. And it just like helps everybody in the room understand, whether this works or not. Also helps them understand like, oh wait, my product intersects with that one and we're not ready for this. So let's,
Totally.
let's go figure that out. So it's been a really helpful. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep writing docs. Occasionally, that is a very useful tool, but to kind of like come back to the making. And now we have a Slack channel, show and tell. People are just like sharing like ideas and prototypes, and I feel like that has like definitely accelerated a lot of the work on some of these things.
So we're working on like transcription and translation features. And I gave this talk in Tokyo maybe 2 weeks ago and just decided on the fly, like probably 10 minutes before. I was with our like Japan team. I'm like, I guess we can kind of like just show this in the talk. They're like, okay. So we put up on a second screen the transcription tool, just real-time translating into Japanese the whole time I gave the talk.
Nice.
Which was like a very like right in front of your community, show the prototype. Or show the real product in this case, but an early version. Felt really good.
Nice.
That just kind of quick turn, I could tell you about the product, or I could just be like, hey, I'm gonna turn this on right now. It may or may not work, but it's gonna be a really cool experience for everybody. Okay, let's go.
And that's amazing. I would imagine an imperfect product was probably so much more impactful than
Then
a
slides
perfect
about the
story
perfect
of
product.
it.
For
Exactly.
sure.
Exactly.
For
Like
sure.
and I mean, it sounds like it was probably running pretty great. So awesome.
Yeah, it did work pretty well,
That's so
which I'm
cool.
glad, but it also could have failed, which would have been fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely fine too.
Like if we imagine a designer at Notion, how do they come to embody that culture where they're making uh, Notion-like choices as part of the whole, it's all one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they also probably have some intuition or desire to will certain things into being their own sort of taste or preference. I mean, first there is a hiring filter lens where like there's some shared sensibility that's led to somebody being there in sort of day one. But then I think there's probably three things that help make this happen. One is we collaborate really closely with our like founder CEO Ivan, and when we collaborate at a design level, what we call just like a jam, I really try to encourage, especially new designers who are sort of learning about how the culture works and trying to get comfortable. As hard as this is, to just be like, we're all just designers here. To really try to like have a mindset that lets go of hierarchy or role or anything. Just five people in a room trying to figure out the thing. That's difficult, but I repeat it over and over again because I really believe it's true. I try to approach it the same way myself. And I think that creates an environment in which you can both, I think, express that point of view more comfortably because it's unlikely to be met with resistance. The energy in the room isn't resistant energy, it's more like yes and energy, but it also allows you to receive it that way too. I think sometimes you can come in and want to assert your point of view to kind of like establish your expertise or your credibility or to get validation. And sometimes that thing just isn't the right one in that moment. And so to be able to also receive things from others, and just have it feel more almost like the ideas are outside ourselves. Like we have them and then we sit them there and then we look at them from the outside as opposed to them being like our idea. So that's number one, is this kind of like we're all just designers in this room. The next is really having very public, like in public channels or in meetings, specific guidance or feedback about why I believe something is working, and give a sort of level of detail in the thinking that leads to that decision, that conviction. And then the third is similar, but is more private. And I think with specific designers or in specific moments, I try to get really close and be like I don't know, slightly opinionated mirror, if that makes sense, to really like encourage the choices where it feels like there's a natural tendency towards what's going to work, to add fuel to those. Or if I know that a person has a desire to maybe explore and challenge more, to create the space for that and kind of permission, like it'll get figured out next time.
Yeah.
Like, but now it doesn't matter if it's right. Let's just like let's see how many ways it can go, and also communicate about that, set that like kind of space for them to do their version. And then we kind of recalibrate it to it's all one thing version.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to build on is you were talking about, in terms of like, the individual that can express like, I think the right ice cream is mint chip and like, let's do it, even if none of you else like it. That's so important. I mean, we hire these incredible people. You want them to bring their like whole self and their greatest ideas to the fold, and you want them to have like strong points of view and to push for it. I think that's very, very healthy. And like how that actually like comes out to be in terms of the like, all right, you make the call. Yeah, you pick the ice cream. Is something that we've been talking a lot about, because like decision making does get harder the more people we hire and the bigger the organization gets and the more products we have and the more users we have. It's just like it's more complex. And so, one of the things we've been talking about is just like autonomy and trust are like, two sides of the same coin. And, so it's like, well, so how do you get there? Like, how do I get trust so that like I can have that autonomy? And, the ways I'm seeing it, is just like, it's really cool where it's like people, kind of reaching out and taking it and showing, their points of view and having that ownership of a choice. but then like start small, right? Like, you're not asking, your new hire to like, make the most bold choice for the entire company,
Sure.
tomorrow, but like, what little thing every day can somebody do that can help to demonstrate, their judgment, their intuition, their knowledge of the company strategy, or like what users need. And just like to get those little wins and to like build that up such that like, at a point you'll be like, yeah, you don't even need me. Like, you just made those
Hmm.
last like 10 decisions. Those were awesome. And like, go, keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
We had this we've been working on some billboard work. Maybe you've seen it around San Francisco. And, the team put together like several different, like really rad ideas. And, they had been, iterating on it. And there was like a lot of feedback, back in the beginning when we were kind of like all getting on the same page. And then it was just like hit after hit. And it's just like, I mean, now I don't even think I see some of these before they go out, because like, yeah, they like very, very clearly demonstrated that like they know the flavors way better than I do. And I think that like it's all coming from the same thing. Like your point there is right. If they can demonstrate that like they've got that awareness, because honestly I feel
Totally.
like that's what my job is most of the time, is just
Mm.
making sure that like that team is aware of what that team is doing, so
Hmm.
that like at the end of the day it feels coherent. And I think people through their work and through their own efforts to be connected across the company is making that happen more often without me involved in those.
I think a version for us at Notion, which is, I mean, I have no role in creating it. It's more something that just exists in the culture. And then I'm like, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
keep it going. It's so high volume, high frequency public sharing.
Yep.
And I think that produces just a certain set of, you find the connections because you make yourself discoverable.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not assuming that everyone sees it, but
Yeah.
it's in a channel where anyone can see it.
Yeah.
And then interesting things happen.
Absolutely. And you might not find every use case, and there will still be gaps or moments where people didn't see it, but like, how many connections did you make? I have this thing that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and I've taken it every role I've ever had, which is I have everybody in my team on a semi-regular cadence. It's like based on how big the team is, share work that they're doing in some very shareable format. So
Mm.
we use a Google slide deck, and people share screenshots of their work. Again, it's like visuals and prototypes as a way to speak, as opposed to like the words to define the projects. And we send that deck out to everybody in the team, and then the various leaders across tech, and actually leaders across the entire company. And it is a way to help people see what's happening. And you just
100%.
like click, it's like 160-page deck, but you like click through it super fast, and you see all of this work happening, and it gives you a sense of what are the big things coming. Maybe helps you see that like, well, there's some patterns that are like not consistent, or oh man, these two people are working on something very similar, like
Hmm.
maybe we should bring these things together. And when I started doing this, I was at Airbnb, and it was a team of like, I think we had grown from 10 to 15 people, and people started to wonder like, I don't know what everybody's doing
Yeah,
anymore,
totally.
and like
Yeah.
I'm losing
Yeah.
touch. And so it used to be like in a small room, probably no bigger than this. I had people like print out their work and put it on the wall, and we'd like
Sure.
silent science fair style look at it together.
Yeah. It's fun.
And then the team grew from 12 to 30 to 50 to like 200. And it needed a different means. And similarly at Stripe, like, no, we can't all be in the same room with printouts, but like there are definitely different ways of being able to stay connected, obviously like various forms of like chat and things throughout the company as a means of sharing. And some folks, honestly, they're begrudging, like, what, we got to put this work in, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
are we going to get so much feedback? And like, they don't end up getting all that much feedback. I think it's more about like those key
100%.
moments where they get that like connection.
100%. It's so funny that I was just describing this last point to someone the other day. Like, isn't there a reservation to share that? And I'm like, yeah, often there is at first, because you think that
Yes.
sharing, it's like, here's everything we're working on and the whole company can see it. That suddenly all this feedback's going to come in. And like, for the most part, the feedback comes from the same like 10 or 15 people who always give feedback on everything.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah. Would you rather now than later?
They're very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do it. When I was leading the design team at Etsy, we'd started a practice of kind of duplicated or adopted again now, like, many years later. We call it design lightning
Mhm.
because it's fast. Today we do it every 2 weeks in Notion. We used to do this at Etsy weekly at some point, and then kind of changed over time. But the experience I had at Etsy was, gosh, the team was probably like 30 or 40 people at this point. We'd go in a big like auditorium. We'd get recorded. Everything was in one slide deck, and the designer would go up to the podium and then step down. It was like this weird physical exercise of people walking up for just like 90 seconds or something. Bam, 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 bam. And the next person would be in line. It was kind of silly, but that was part of the fun.
Awesome.
And they'd go through everything. We had a kind of fixed format. We do a similar thing now. My introductions are always like, there's some version of like, here's everything we've done, or here's highlights of everything that's happened in design over the last 2 weeks. Like when you watch it at one point, it's like 17 minutes at 1.5x. Like that's the sell.
That is
and
so
you're
cool.
like, you can watch 17 minutes of content and get like a really like sweeping overview of so much work we're doing. Designers really taken it up. They've taken up the habit. And then at one point, people were working on several different things and it got bigger. A couple of the designers were like, is this worth it? I'm like, well, one, you have to look at the feedback from not design. We see other people being like, this is amazing.
Yep.
Most high octane 15 minutes, favorite post to see, just like, you're like, yes, this is for them, not us. But also calibrate the team, remind them. So I said, if you're spending more than 5 minutes, sounds extreme, but if you're spending more than 5 minutes preparing for this, you're doing it wrong.
It's the lightest snapshot. It's just literally,
I agree.
Just open it up a few minutes before we hit record. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it works wonders. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm also obsessed with the format of Pechakucha. You familiar with that? Oh yeah. Where like the slides auto advance every 20 seconds. So it's like, you have no choice. It can't be perfect. It's just going to go fast. We'll get through a lot of content.
It's great.
At Stripe in my time there, I've been a part of a group trying to better define what we mean by quality. I do think it's important that every person that's contributing, which is really everyone, contributing to what we build, have like a point of view on that and be able to identify certain aspects of it. Doesn't mean that like they're going to, have the same intuition for like what makes a great UX or not, but like start to develop the language a little bit more. And so our definition of product quality is that it has 3 major aspects to it. It's powerful, it's well-crafted, and it's beautiful. And, we have, of course, doc that describes this. And we have examples that we talk about.
Are there demos that describe it too?
There are definitely things that like embody this, and some, especially in a culture that is, has a really strong engineering culture. It's like, well, what do you mean by beauty? Right. And it's like, kind of like what you said, there's going to be a lot of it that is, somewhat intuition based, somewhat subjective, might not be measurable, or at least might not be measurable at first. But we definitely do believe that the pursuit of it is both, certainly for our users' benefit and can help grow our product, right? Like if you can understand it better, if you enjoy using it, you're much, much more likely to. There's also a real big point of pride in building things that have power, craft, and beauty. And so even if it didn't drive the business, I think we'd still do it because, and frankly, if you're going to work this hard, you might as well be proud of what you're building at the end of the day.
It's self-reinforcing.
Yeah. And like people are going to want to work at a company where, 100%. You're doing things that you take, seriously and put a lot of pride into.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it is very clear that metrics and goals are clarifying. If you don't have a sense of score, how do you know you're doing the game well, right? If you're like, if you're new to the field, were you supposed to put it in the hole or over there? I mean, football, would you ever figure that out if someone didn't tell you? Anyway, but so like keeping score as a means of, helping to check in on how things are going and also prioritize and like bring clarity, I think is useful. So like one of the ways we've done that, for example, there's a couple of things. So we have this thing at Stripe called Essential Journeys. And what it is we identified our like top 15, kind of primary user experiences. Certainly not a comprehensive list, but they're like, top priority areas that our customers are most often experiencing and are certainly core to our business.
Are these like the highest volume or most commercially valuable? Maybe
Kind
those
of
are
like
kind of
all
one
of
and the
the
same.
above.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, being able to onboard to Stripe and be able to find the right product for or
Okay.
products for
Great.
your
Yeah.
needs, being able to get going and send payment links, which is like our fastest, easiest way to like immediately start being able to take money for your goods, or set up subscriptions. Like these are like common things that our users are doing, and we want to make sure they're really, really good. And so we identified these, we identified the, kind of the triad, the eng, product and designer that work on those things. And then once a quarter, they're supposed to walk the store, which is like experience the product like a user would for
Hmm.
these flows. And then they give it a score, which is subjective. It's
Yeah.
got a rubric, but it's based on our, quality definition. But they give it a score. Is it red, yellow, green, or, shades in between?
Cool.
Which is, by the way, really clarifying because, of course, going back to that point of pride, like, what is quality? Like, first and foremost, are people proud of it? You hire
Mm,
great people. Like that should be the like, kind of the ultimate judge of like whether or not it's right.
yeah. Love that.
And so like having them put a score to it and then they friction log it. So they write down their experience and like capture what's wrong and we immediately, put it in a bug or like take care of it right away, hopefully if it's really quick. And, the goal is to get these things to green. And that's one of our top company OKRs is
Cool.
to get these things to green.
Great.
And, at first it was like a little scary because it's like, this is subjective and it's going to be, a company goal and, it's not a comprehensive list. And, it's an experiential thing, but it's been really, really clarifying. And what's amazing is when, people that are walking the store and experiencing the product, feel like they're in the product every day, right? They're building for it. So they are always using it, but they're using it usually in some, kind of small
Yeah.
form. And maybe they're working on their particular part of the product
Yeah.
that's a little newer and they're not necessarily doing it like a user would, where they're like hunting and pecking and moving around and they're going to docs and then maybe they're going back to the marketing website and they're going to different places. And so having people experience it that way,
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
pretty cool to hear from people that like aren't, always thinking first and foremost of a user journey to actually say like, whoa, I saw some things that I didn't realize. Like, I'm excited about our part of the product, but I didn't realize how our part of the product connects with this other part of the product is actually like, it doesn't make sense. Like we're using different words for the same thing
Yeah.
and it doesn't
Great.
really feel connected. And, this old thing that we haven't touched in days is like starting or, months. It doesn't feel like it's as aligned. And so that has been helpful. And the fact that it is part of, the core metrics, I think emphasizes to everybody how important these things are.
Yeah. I think the experience I've had in the past, poorly led or poorly managed, um, focus on metrics can lead you down a really dangerous path of like having a difficult time having
Yes.
conviction around
Yes.
opinions and is uncomfortable making decisions without um, other things to make the decision for you, like
Yeah.
some some numbers to say which is right. I think there's a couple of challenges there. One is that at some level is just sort of diminishing returns. There's
Yeah.
some things that are simply um, too small, too on the edge, maybe too unknowable in the way in which data is collected or stored or analyzed. Like it would be far too expensive in time or effort to get that answer. And so you either need to be comfortable making a decision without that information
Mm-hmm.
or not. Um, or where there's something important that we do not yet know how to successfully measure. And so near term negative results can belie the potential for future much greater positive results. I think
100%.
I've seen all those kind of problems play out in teams or cultures that with with all good intentions really thought they were doing it like the right way or the best way. And I think having conviction and the confidence to sort of act in absence of external information is a really powerful tool, and in fact maybe becomes a differentiator as I think like parts of the industry track towards a norm, like a style of decision making or a style of um like if you want different outcomes you need to make different kinds of decisions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think we make different kinds of decisions.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it should be, set out an alert if like you're, seeing an organization that is only making, kind of choices for quality because the numbers tell them to,
Totally.
because
Yeah.
then they will only do it when the numbers tell them to.
Mm.
And so I do think,
Yeah.
that like want for
That's even
pride
worse. I
with,
wasn't even imagining that. Yeah, that's even worse.
that's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's sort of multiple trends in a way cresting at different moments or kind of intersecting with each other in the design profession. And I think when it comes to building software products, when I think about product designer, I think we're probably, 15 years into a wave of software product design kind of intersecting with some of the human-centered design methods and methodologies and a lot of support for like capital D, like design can do
Mm.
everything. Design is like this powerful force that I think pushed a generation of designers. Well, at the same time as the industry was like, growing very rapidly and had a high demand for talent, and there was, um, you know, well compensated roles for design interested people inside the industry. So like a lot of people are like sucked into this fast like growing thing. At the same time, I was saying design can and should be more. And in fact, it is powerful for a designer to do more than what you would have traditionally associated with design.
Mhm.
And so then in the world of software, that went from beyond, making maybe mock-ups of screens or don't really make, we don't really make flow charts like you like used to. But there's a few sort of key artifacts that used to happen for like a interaction designer, let's say, or something. Early days of like product design. Move beyond that to be, to partner close with data science to sort of understand metrics in one way, to find sort of insights in the data and usage patterns, to understand research, both at the like kind of foundational level, at the usability level, a bunch of, to again kind of understand users, maybe even be capable of operating, conceiving of and operating those things themselves, to be able to do kind of, experiment design, to sort of wear many hats inside the organization, which is super powerful. I mean, I think, that all of those skills and to be able to synthesize all those things and then render them out into the world through the lens of a designer is really, really powerful. And I think that trend continues. But I think what you also see happening is a counter trend of designers who feel as though that way of doing the practice has minimized some of the absolutely unique value that only the designer can bring
Mm.
in crafting some of the like the emotional, the like felt, heard, seen aspects of the designed experience that go back to some of the elemental parts of design that look like, Bauhaus art school, like give form to content, like big metaphor into simple geometry, like these really, really elemental things that drew like creative people into this like applied thing of design. And then that's all kind of getting, this has been true maybe in parallel for the whole time. For anyone working in software, there's an aspect of just, if you really want to craft software, you need to like know how to build software. So you can like draw pictures of software or you can like make software. I think that's kind of been happening the whole time. Like how much do you need to be like a software engineer as a designer? I've always been of the point of view for a very long time that it's better to be than to not in that case. And I think we're seeing that happen again. Like the new chapter of the should designers code, must designers code
Yeah.
question is like, and now it's easier to do that because like,
Yeah.
because Windsurf can like help you do it, and your
Yeah.
your IDE can help you do all this stuff. Just chat with your code base, and it can work, which is largely true. And so I think that like we're in this funny collision where the um, some aspects of design have gotten so big in the ambition in a really exciting way that everything is design. We will design the business. We will design the enterprise. And other parts of design said no. The thing that we offer that is truly unique sits in the spending as much time as possible crafting the experience itself.
Yeah.
All valid, but I think there's something to that latter one that maybe I would say it feels like something the world needs more right now.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
And why I feel so strongly about that is because of 1927. I read an article recently from The Atlantic from 1927. It's called, this is not the exact title, but it's something along the lines of like Beauty, the New Business Tool. Something like that.
Great.
The author is talking about on the heels of the second industrial revolution in the United States, there was a want, a eagerness for beauty in the products that people were buying. And basically what they had observed is that, in the industrial revolution, there's like they were making a lot of stuff, like so many more, vehicles and new automobiles, new refrigerators maybe, and I don't exactly know which was like invented when, but like the new things in your bathroom and new things in your housewares, all these things that were just like being created rapidly, like fantastic functionality coming out of this like machine age, and that was awesome. And there was really no care for how something actually like look or felt. It was just about
Sure.
like how it would work.
Yep.
And so what this author was pointing out is just like now there's just this like, craving for more art and beauty and life and emotion connection in these things. And so that people were making, starting to make automobiles that were more attractive, or that like pencil sharpener that looks like it's from like the back of a airplane.
Yep.
And it's like one of the earlier signs of design, or the Chrysler building that was built
Yep.
around the same time. And it's like, it's a certain aesthetic, right? It's based like it's informed by the machine age, but it was
Yep.
like this idea of like this beauty. And it was making me think about, this version of industrial revolution that we're in right now with AI. And, the barrier to entry to create things is much lower. And yes, like people can create apps and various products rapidly, and they can create them at a pretty good level, right? Like, there's this proliferation of, kind of like slick app design that basically looks like every other one
Sure.
out
Yep.
there. And so I think we're going to see that same craving for something a little bit more. And, that what was wanted in, 1927, this like sense of beauty is like, it's really about like knowing that like there was care and thought put into that work,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
just because the assembly line can create, 27 of these things in, rapid time doesn't mean that like it actually has like all of that that makers care into it. And the things that like think about the things you and I both probably cherish, like the products that we have that like really just were like so much more thought into it. This is one of the reasons also why like luxury and exclusive things are so wanted, right? Is people want to know that they have something that really like went that extra mile. And so that's what gets me really excited about where the design industry goes, and what that unique value that expert designers bring is like, no matter what tools exist, no matter how fast or easy it is to create these things,
Totally. Yeah.
somebody with a sense of taste, somebody that can anticipate not just what is popular, but what's going to be popular and what feels right. And, maybe that little edge that was like not expected, and, that little extra curve that like wasn't a pattern that had been used and therefore not derived necessarily again from AI, is just something that I think, we can bring. And, I don't know what it's going to be called, if it, it still stays, being called the designer forever.
Yeah.
I kind of like the term, but, take it anyway. But like, I think that is the, the unique thing that will always be needed.
Yeah. Love it.